Soon we're going to have the Global Mercy coming online. You can't help but be moved by the things that you see here. That's life-changing and it's life-giving.
Hello and welcome to Mercy Ships. My name's Anne Buckland. I'm the Global Campaign Manager for Mercy Ships, and we are here in the heart of the Global Mercy Hospital at the moment as part of the Come On Board season. So the ship is currently in Rotterdam, and we thought it would be a fabulous opportunity to create a space on board to meet some of the many, many amazing people that make up the Mercy Ships family and hear some of their stories and what makes them do what they do. So in the studio with me today, I have Dr. Miriam John. Good morning.
Good morning, Anne.
And Dr. Miriam, what is your official title with Mercy Ships?
So my official job title is Interim International Chief Medical Officer.
Perfect. And what does that mean?
So the International Chief Medical Officer of the organisation has the oversight for what we do in programmes, but it also has what we do in terms of crew health and occupational health, so keeping our crew healthy, and a lot around our professional governance and patient safety issues as well.
So to put that into slightly more layman's terms, I guess, in the middle of a pandemic and with the Africa Mercy returning to Africa, currently you're quite busy.
Yes, I've been busy with looking at our COVID preparedness, so how we respond to COVID, how we reduce the chances of getting COVID. Also responsible for keeping the crew healthy, even outside of COVID things, and responsible for making sure that we deliver safe surgical care to our patients.
Amazing, amazing. Now tell me a bit about your journey with Mercy Ships. Where did that start?
So my journey with Mercy Ships actually started with a friend, which I think is quite a common story. So I have a friend that served as a nurse in Sierra Leone in 2011. And at that time, I'd just finished medical school, brand new baby doctor, and she told me about all these amazing experiences that she'd had. And I thought one day I'd really like to do that. And as so happens in the NHS, you start your training, you get on the conveyor belt of training, and you go through your years. And I just had this break, like natural break in the training, about 5-6 years in, and decided that now was as good a time as any. So I put in an application to be a hospital physician. So I started serving as a volunteer with Mercy Ships in 2017 in Cameroon.
Amazing. And what did that look like? Can you remember going to your first field service?
Yeah, I remember turning up and not really realising what a big deal it is to move a ship from one place to another and set up a hospital. I had just assumed that we would turn up ready to plug and play, had no kind of idea of the scope of the organisation that's actually needed to put a hospital in a port in Africa. So that was the first thing that really struck me is, wow, this is a bigger deal than I had anticipated. And then the next thing is just the community. So I never anticipated living in a community that's just full of people that really want to serve others, really want to be the hands and feet of Jesus in the world. And just the need from the patients, like our patients are very special to us. They often have waited a really long time. We think we have long waits in the NHS, but at least we have a health system to wait in. So a lot of these patients have struggled to access care and have waited years in order to be able to get access to safe, affordable surgical care. So just that need, and then the gratitude that these patients come with is just so wonderful. They've waited so long, and they're just so grateful that someone's listened to them, that someone can give them answers, and that someone can give them healing.
Can you remember the first person you saw that in? So what was the first patient when you realised that the impact was tangible?
When we first got to Cameroon, we actually started with Pediatric orthopedics. So that's when we bring children on board that might have bent legs, and then we give them surgeries to give them straight legs and help them to walk again. And I think it's just so obvious that the need there was just so obvious. You've got children that have not been able to access school, children that have not been able to play with other children because they physically can't, or because they've just been shunned by their peers. And so it became really tangible that this is so preventable. I actually have a cousin that was born with club feet.
Right.
So for me, that was never a thing. I didn't even know that she had club feet because it was fixed when she was a baby.
Wow.
So to then go to a country where these children have club feet, and that means they've not been able to, go to school or make friends, it's just really heartbreaking because that just wouldn't happen somewhere like the UK.
Perfect. And we see the need. The need can be quite overwhelming, can't it?
Yeah.
If you see the scale of the issue. What does that look like from a specific patient? Like, which patients stick with you, seeing them go through that journey?
So I think the story of Ulrich, who I know is one that's already been featured anyway because his condition was so severe. So he's a 15-year-old boy, and you may have seen pictures of him, and he walks on sticks, and his legs were almost bent backwards so that he was maybe 2 foot off the ground. And just seeing this boy come in and knowing that he's never seen the world above 2 foot, and yet he's, nearly 6 foot tall if you straightened his legs, which is what we did. And that was really powerful, just it was very complex surgery. He had to have one leg done at a time. So there's a photo of him where he has one straight leg in a cast, and then his other leg is sort of sticking off to the other side, and then having them fixed and watching him go through that rehab. Now, I was there for 9 weeks at first, and he was one of the first patients to get surgery. And on the day that I left the ship, I shared a flight with our orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Frank Hayden from the States. And Ulrich gave his sticks to Frank as Frank was leaving the ship and handed them to him and said, "I'd like you to have these. I don't need them anymore."
Wow.
And I think that was just such a powerful moment of bringing hope and healing, and it felt really tangible at that moment in time.
Wow. Well, and yes, Ulrich's story has been used quite widely because it's a fairly dramatic picture, isn't it? Just not being able to move. What is it that causes that? You say that it's quite, with the NHS in the UK that we're really privileged to have, if a baby is born with something, quite often that's identified very quickly and it can be resolved.
Yeah.
Why is it that a problem starts as a small one can get to that level?
I think for a lot of our patients, they struggle to access care, either because the care physically isn't where they live in a very rural area and it's a long way to access care, or because of the financial barriers to care. So some of that is the actual cost of the care itself. Some of it is the cost of travelling to the place that you're going to get your care from. So often, like in the UK, if a baby is born and there is a problem, that gets picked up either before they leave hospital or very early on by the midwife or the health visitor. And that system just doesn't always exist. And if it does, it doesn't exist as strongly in rural areas. And so those people really struggle to have their needs identified early. Then it becomes a problem as a child grows and the deformity gets worse as the child grows, by which point it's even harder to access care. You don't know where you would go to get the care. And by that point, sometimes the children are already withdrawing because people are, they make fun of them or they don't want to play with them because they think there's something wrong with them.
And so how can that impact both a child's life and the community around them?
I think for the child, they feel like there's something wrong with them. And that is then impacted, like it's made worse by the response of the community around them. So for like an individual child, my biggest concern is they don't access education. And without an education, they're going to struggle to progress in life. So their health need actually is what determines their trajectory for the rest of their life. Even though that child might have amazing potential, they could be a rocket scientist or a brain surgeon, but if they never go to school, they'll never be given the skills to be able to achieve their potential. So for the child, that's the thing that I feel, as an individual, they really miss out on. For the community, I think it can become quite divisive for communities. In some of the communities we work within, they think that it's a curse, or they get taken to local healers to have things done to try and correct the curse. And I think that just divides the community, because obviously you have a family that instinctively loves their child and wants to love their child, and yet they're not supported by their community. And I think as well, the more individuals you have that within a community that struggle to access education because of their health needs, that community is going to struggle to progress. You know, if you have a community of 100 people, and you've got 10 children and one of them can't go to school, that could be the one person that, you know, set up a farm and created jobs for the others. But if you don't let them reach their educational potential, they're never going to achieve that and help build their community.
Wow, you paint a really striking picture, actually. So it's sometimes we speak in our communication about helping release someone's potential, but actually you're quite right. If someone gets those first steps taken away from them, then they could have done 1,000 different things, but actually that's just stopped, which then impacts the community. What was it? Now, so you did your first volunteering stint with Mercy Ships in 2017. Why are you here still 5 years later? What made you stay?
So I thought I'll go serve with Mercy Ships. I'll do my volunteering. I'll do my couple of months abroad, and that will settle the sort of unsettlingness within me, the sort of desire to do that. I would do it and I'd be satisfied, and then I would move on. And as I'm sure you have heard many times before, people come to Mercy Ships and they serve, and there's just something about this organisation that makes you want to keep serving. The people that you get to serve with, often really strong faith journeys, very like-minded in faith, and that wasn't something you can practice in the NHS. So for me, this opportunity to practice a career that I love, but also to be able to share my faith as a part of that, is incredible. Not an option that you have in many places. And I think just the people that you serve with, the community, there's something somewhat appealing about it. Sometimes it's a challenge. People come with different perspectives, but often you really feel like you're being the body of Christ together, which is just a wonderful opportunity. So I actually left thinking, when could I come back, obviously. And then I came back later on in that field service to cover a gap in the hospital physician rota again, at which point someone talked to me about medical capacity building. So that's when I got involved in medical capacity building, because I really wanted the opportunity to come and share my clinical skills with others. And I'm very fortunate that back in the NHS, I had gone part-time and I was allowed to annualise my hours. So I worked a full-time rota for so many months of the year, and then was able to take unpaid leave. So it gave me a lot of flexibility to do things with the MCB team as well.
That's amazing. So tell me a bit more about the medical capacity building. What does that look like?
So medical capacity building is the second pillar of what we do. So the first thing we do is direct medical care, which is where we meet somebody's needs. There's unmet surgical needs, and we come in and we meet them in that need. The second thing we do is medical capacity building, which is when we help to build up the workforce to give them the skills that they need. It varies a lot between countries and what they need. So some countries might have more anaesthetic training than others. Others might have more surgical training or better nursing training. So for us, we have to sensitively come in and try and identify, like, what are your needs and what are the needs that we as Mercy Ships are skilled to help you with. So a big thing about capacity building is training individual workers in different skills, but also training them to train others, so that when we leave, they can continue scaling up that work.
That's amazing. And why does that matter?
When the ship comes in, we do amazing work, but we can't stay there all the time. And the need is still going to be there when we leave. And it's important that we help to strengthen healthcare systems as part of what we do, so that we're leaving a positive impact. We're empowering those local clinicians to change a system, because as an organisation we have influence, but it isn't our responsibility to fix that system. But we do have an amazing opportunity to influence empowering others to be able to change their system from the inside.
That's awesome. Tell me a bit about, can you give me an example of someone that has been helped with training that you can share?
Yes, I think we've got some really key relationships that we have developed. So there's probably one in every country where we've got a really strong relationship with a surgeon or an anaesthetist, where we can then help springboard what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to talk about Professor Rafiu, who is a maxillofacial surgeon in Guinea. So he had trained with Dr. Gary Parker, came on board the vessel quite a few times. And when we went back to Guinea, there were fewer cleft lips and palates that needed to be fixed, because Dr. Rafiu had used the skills that he had learned, or at least enhanced from Dr. Gary, to be able to treat that condition like in the country, which is amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you saw less surgeries in
so
total.
Dr. Gary and I had a conversation. I think when I was doing capacity building in Guinea, and I'd seen him, and I always loved to have a cup of coffee with Dr. Gary, and he was saying we came here and I was expecting hundreds, and there just weren't as many to do, because Rafiu had been doing these things as well. And since we've had the Gamal Dental School in Guinea, where Dr. David Ugai, who's one of our dentists, he has worked really closely with Professor Rafiu to be able to kind of help him build what he wants to do for training other maxillofacial surgeons in the country.
Amazing. So tell me a bit about the Gamal Dental Clinic as well.
So the Gamal Dental Clinic is a great idea from Dr. Dave Ugai, who's one of our dentists. So he was our lead dentist leading programmatic work, and he identified there was this need. They had a dental school, but actually the dentist would often do a lot of theory and not touch a patient until after they'd finished dental school, which isn't how it would be. In dental schools in the UK, you do that as part of your training. Mm-hmm. So he has set up a sort of almost postgraduate training course where people come, and patients will come and have care in the clinic, but they're already qualified dentists, and Dave just observes them, helps them with their technique, gives them feedback. So he doesn't directly do the dental care. His passion is for helping other people give better dental care.
That's awesome. Now, I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask you why, because when I first heard it, it sounded like a bit of a tangent. Mercy Ships provide surgery. They provide hope and healing through a range of different programs. But dental, what's the link there? So
dental is dental surgery, and I think we forget that. You and I go to the dentist and have a checkup or a filling, and we don't think of it as being surgery, but dental is dental surgery. There are also conditions that can be picked up, and very minor dental oral surgery will stop bigger problems in the future. So one of the reasons that we continue with the dental program is because it is a surgery. It's just not how you and I might think of a surgery. And it does, by improving that capacity to do that, it prevents the chances of needing to have these really big complex surgeries later, because the problems can be resolved in the beginning. So in the UK, for example, maxillofacial surgeons are dual trained. They've been to dental school and they've been to medical school. So they are a surgeon in two different worlds. And so I think that's one of the reasons we try and enhance that in the countries we work within, because it is part of surgical capacity building.
That's amazing. So it's much more early intervention for issues, so you don't get something cascading.
Yeah, the really big tumours that we see started off as something very small, and you want to train people to spot it and remove it, and people to have access to that care, so that you don't need to do these big surgeries anymore.
That's amazing. What is it that keeps you coming back to Mercy Ships?
I really love the opportunity to be part of an organisation that I always feel is being the hands and feet of Jesus. We hear the word and we act upon it, and that's really important to me. I'm also very passionate that we've been really blessed in the UK with a National Health Service. I look at, my own family's health, and I think if I was in a different healthcare system, we would be bankrupted. I wouldn't have been able to, had the opportunities that I have had without it. And so when I look at other healthcare systems, I'm very passionate about how we can empower people to improve those systems and make life better for our patients. Good health is a sign of a strong, solid country. It allows you to progress with your education. It allows you to progress with your economy if you have healthy populations. So that's the thing that really drives my passion. But I love the fact that we meet people in their need as well. We're not just an organisation that looks at, an individual or a group of healthcare workers or a healthcare system. We found a model where we can actually do all three of those things. So we meet someone in their need, we help empower our healthcare workforce, and then we also try and work with the countries for what we need to do to help them improve their healthcare systems.
That's amazing. So it's a proper kind of 360-degree look at something rather than just parachuting in.
Yeah.
What do you think? What is your hope? So, just trying to think which order, because there are a number of different other things that come off the back of that. Let's talk about the return to Africa first. You've just come off the Africa Mercy. What has that been like?
Well, this year has been such a blessing for me, because I went to Texas in January, I've been to Senegal in February, and I'm in Rotterdam in March. I mean, this is just such a great start to the year. The return of the Africa Mercy is just so exciting. I think as an organisation, we've been trying to get back. So the only way I can describe it is trying to get back. And every time we tried to get back, there'd be some other thing that meant we couldn't go back. And it was just an incredible moment. So I'll share my kind of personal experience of this, is that I got to go on the pilot boat to meet the Africa Mercy coming into Dakar. And it was just so incredible. It's Harmattan season in Senegal. And so, there's this mist above the horizon. And then I'm traveling on this little pilot boat with these waves splashing up. And then you just see this little box. It's a little like shoebox shape in the distance. And you know that it's the Africa Mercy. And just seeing it back, just like coming back into Dakar, was just an incredible experience. Awesome. Just seeing us do our normal work. And I describe it as we started and it was as if we hadn't stopped. Now, don't get me wrong, it still has its challenges. Trying to start a surgical schedule while a pandemic is still ongoing at the end of a wave of infections has not been a walk in the park. But every challenge that has come our way, like the Lord has really provided. And I think that's the thing that we've learned in the last few weeks, is that there was something that was seen as a barrier, and actually God's hand was already in it. So we had a problem getting a surgeon into the country at the last minute, and we thought, goodness, we're going to have to cancel these surgeries. And at the same point, another surgeon happens to send us an email to say, I know it's a little bit late, but I was just wondering if you've got any space for me to come.
Oh, wow.
Literally that night. So we had this meeting at 5:30. What are we going to do? Woke up at 8 o'clock the next morning, and the Lord had already provided an answer. And
wow.
Those kind of stories are what I can really sort of share have happened over the last few weeks. And it's just so great to have patients back, seeing them on the dock, bringing them into the wards, just knowing that we're doing what we've designed that ship to do is just so incredible.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I've seen the photos of the first patient going up the gangway. And it is wonderful to have a ship back in Senegal. Now, just to cover that a bit, the ship might be back, but Mercy Ships has still been quite active in the pandemic, haven't they?
Yeah, so we've never really left Africa. The ship may have left Africa, but Mercy Ships has not. We've done a lot during the time. The ship shut down in March 2020. And then we looked at then doing the PPE donations. So we've done a number of PPE donations across the continent. We've still had a team on the ground in Guinea. We've still had a team on the ground in Liberia. So the Gamal Dental School has run this whole time. Wow. And looking at other projects that they might do alongside Gamal. And then in Liberia, we've been running workshops to look at, what does the health system need? We've been running different training projects. We've still got Food for Life programs running. We've worked in Togo with Dr. Vordemay to do cataract surgery. We've worked in Benin with Dr. Odri to support her in training for her plastic surgery. So we've been very active even without the ship. But the ship is such a wonderful platform for us to use. So we've managed to keep going, but our core work that we do is that we use the hospital ship to bring an example of how a hospital could run and what a hospital could look like. And we really love on our patients, like we love them extravagantly. I think our nurses on board just show so much care and compassion to those patients, and then demonstrate that to the people that work with them as well.
That's amazing. And I love that. I know that the figures of impact over the last year have actually been quite astounding. But to have the ships back able to do what they were designed to do is amazing.
Yeah.
And paint the picture, that what will the Global Mercy enable Mercy ships to do?
So I had a moment yesterday. I've been on this ship for just over a week now, and I visited it while it was in Antwerp, albeit briefly. And I had a moment yesterday where I was showing somebody around, and it suddenly hit me that this ship really does look like a hospital corridor. Like I walk down the corridor, it looks like the hospital corridor in my own hospital that I used to work in back in the UK. And it just really struck me of we're going to have an amazing world-class healthcare facility. And it's light, there's lots of space. We've got 120 acute beds on board, which is much more than we've had on the Africa Mercy. We've got 6 operating rooms. We're just going to be able to do so much more. And I think as well, one of the things we have on the Africa Mercy is it's not a huge amount of space, so we have to set up things on the dock side. And we have those things built onto the ship now, which should hopefully mean that we're a little bit more agile as we go forward in the future. And just some of the technologies that we've installed on board. So I don't know if you know this, but in the operating room lights are cameras, which then means that we can bring surgeons into a training room and they can sit and they can watch the surgeries happen.
Wow.
And that kind of goes back. So I went to medical school in Cardiff. And in the University Hospital of Wales, there's an operating room with a viewing gallery above it. And people used to go and watch from the viewing gallery the surgeries that were happening. And now we have the ability to do that because we have these cameras and we can put people in a training room and have another surgeon in the training room with them, talking them through the technique, and they can observe, the different techniques that we have and how we do things. So I think that's a really exciting opportunity and things that we can do with this ship that we were not able to do with the Africa Mercy.
That's amazing.
And that means we can then, on the Africa Mercy, concentrate more on a different kind of model where we would do, we're still doing surgeries, but a different kind of mentorship where you might have a surgeon in the room with you, but you can only do one surgeon at a time as opposed to 10 or 12 surgeons.
Wow, so that medical capacity building element of the work really can increase as well as you can train more people, etc. Perfect. What would you say to, so you said that you first got interested at least in Mercy ships when you were coming to the end of your first part of your medical studies. What would you say to young medics in that position?
I feel like I should be cautious in how I approach this because there's 2 schools of thought. I really think that we have one life, and if your purpose in life is that you have to define what your purpose in life is going to be. I would say that you should be bold and think about it. There's a certain element of skill that you need to have to come and do this job. So you can't come while you're at medical school and you're still a medical student. You shouldn't really come when you're still, a baby intern. But I certainly think after you've been qualified for 5 or 6 years, you've got the skill set to be able to come and to serve. And just to be bold and to realise that the training trajectory that you have doesn't always have to be a straight path. There are ways that you can take a step out of training and then step back into it. So, for example, one of the physicians that we have on board the Africa Mercy right now, he is training to be a general practitioner. And as part of his training, he was allowed to have a year out of programme to do global medical activity. And so he's chosen to come and do that with us. Wow. So that's amazing. And then he will go back into the final year of his training next year and then finish his training. But it's different depending on the country. So in the States, you're very much not considered to have finished your training until you've done your whole residency. And I think when you have training in the UK and Australia, there's a little bit more flexibility with how that would look.
Amazing. And how does that like for the community? Because actually the medical community is actually or the medical positions on board are quite a small number. So does that mean that Mercy Ships only needs medics, or?
No, I mean, it's a hospital, and B, and it's a ship. It's both of those things. So you can't do a surgery without certain people being in the room. So you have to have a surgeon and an anaesthetist and a scrub nurse, usually someone else that sort of runs the operating room. Outside of that, you need your supportive services. So you can't really do surgery without any kind of radiology, without any kind of laboratory work, without the quality and safety piece that goes alongside that and the administration. So we do also need people to come and work in our laboratory, work in our radiology suite. We need people that can come and do healthcare admin, people that can do patient quality information, like record keeping and things like that. But then the hospital sits within, a bigger picture. So, post-op care, you need nurses that can do that. You need physiotherapists. Sometimes we need specialised occupational therapists. So you might have a hand therapist, dietitians, in order to prepare our patients to make them healthy for surgery. So there's a lot of those supportive things. But then the rest of the ship has to run. So the engines have to run. So we desperately need to have engineers that can come and keep the engines running, deck officers that can keep the ship running, people that can cook the food, serve the food, clean up afterwards. This ship doesn't work without the whole of that community. So I would just say to anybody that's thinking about volunteering with us, there will be a role for you. Don't think just because you're not a healthcare professional that you can't come and serve with us. I would come along, take a look at the website. There's such a wonderful opportunity to serve. And sometimes serving leads to other things. So we have a person working in our capacity building at the moment who actually served in the dining room before. So he just decided he wanted to come and serve with us. He didn't care what position he served in. And then through being on board, he met with people and he shared what his skills were, his background was, and what his passions were. And then there was a role that was a really good fit for him, but in a department that maybe he hadn't thought about being in before. So I would just encourage anyone that if you have a heart to serve and you're not really sure where your place is, get in contact, look at what opportunities we have, and who knows what doors the Lord will open.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been really lovely speaking to you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much, Anne.